Okay, I'm excited. We got a Q&A. I've only done one of these before, so this is going to be cool. Great questions were asked. I made a post about a week ago and asked you to ask me questions. So we've got some really good ones in here. We will chapter these out so that you don't have to watch the whole video if you don't want to. You can kind of look at the questions and go see what's relevant to you. So I'm just going to jump right into the first question from Ashton. How did you start your business in making custom furniture? And how do you make your business different from others? So I started my business in around 2011. Actually, going back a little bit before that, 2008, I tried to start a business in Waco, Texas, and it failed horribly. 2008 was a financial crisis year. It was not an easy year to do anything. So that didn't work out. But then I moved to Bernie, where I got married, met my wife, got married, and got a job for 3 years working in a door shop. So that 3-year process was good for me to gain some confidence in my abilities. And then I was my boss was awesome. He's a great mentor of mine, and I was very open to him that, hey, I'm going to do my own thing eventually. And he kind of helped me a little bit transition. It was a good break. And I just started I started in my garage actually before I left his shop. I was kind of doing a few side jobs, and then I got I think it was about 800 square foot shop in Bernie, and started there. And there's no like secret to how to start. I just started doing work, and it was a slow process. I leaned a lot on my father-in-law, who was a home builder. They built him and my wife's uncle built really nice houses here in Bernie, very high end, and they were able to get me jobs. Not great jobs to start. I mean, I did a lot of just oddball things. But it earned revenue, it made the business money, and I was able to slowly get furniture orders and commissions. And I would say over the course of 4 to 5 years, it started to snowball and pick up. And really, I think about the 4 to 5 year marker, I felt like, okay, I've got traction, I'm moving. It was a tough start for me. There was a lot of hard months where I didn't make a lot of money. So it was just the slow process, and I really leaned on, my father-in-law, who was a home builder, and some interior designers I knew, and just my network of people to help support me and get those first commissions going. And if you do good work, the pieces you build will become, the clients you build for will become your sales reps, and they'll invite families over to eat dinner on the dining room table you made, and then everyone talks about it. Next thing you know, you got more people contacting you. So it just kind of snowballed. Sorry, I'm going to have to unlock this dumb iPad. I'm going to turn it off. The follow-up on that was, how do you make your business different from others? I don't really know. I think locally to my region, I'm unique in that I do really high-end custom furniture. There's more cabinet shops around here. So anyone seeking a really nice heirloom piece, that kind of differentiates me and sets me apart, just because I do that higher level work that's just a lot harder to get into. So I think that's one of the things that makes my business different than others. All right, so next question is from Cameron. He says, who is working with you now? Is he full-time? Curious to hear about the balance between trying to get more work because you have an employee versus doing less work if it's just you. This is a really good question, and it's pretty good timing because I've been battling with a lot of this in my head over the last couple of years. I'll start kind of towards the end, or the backside of this question. Curious to hear about the balance between trying to get more work because you have an employee versus less if it's just you. I have spent since I started my business, I have felt the need to get bigger, to scale, to have 3 or 4 guys, to grow out of this shop. And I've felt that because I guess there's a sense of that's a provement of accomplishment. And that makes me feel like I'm growing and I'm getting better. But I've learned as I've gotten older that doesn't necessarily mean better at all. Bigger can be way more headaches, and a lot of the big shops you see are, a month away from being done, closing the doors. So, from the outside, you just don't know. Also, it's stressful. So I've kind of, that door has closed on me a lot over the course, and I have, now at 43, looking at, the next 15 years of my life as I go into my 50s and eventually into my 60s, I feel like the one-man shop is a great fit for me. It's just, there's more freedom to it, and I'm going to go more into detail on this, but obviously, if you have someone working for you in the shop, you got to be here. You can't really leave them, so I have a little bit more freedom in my time, which I like, and I'm kind of the person who kind of likes to work on their own. But all that being said, let's look at the big picture. This is a custom furniture shop, so everything here is one-off custom. Every piece is different, and it takes a lot of knowledge and skill to be able to sit down and build pieces like this. I still struggle when I get into a piece. I'm like, how am I going to build this? If you have an employee in here, you got to figure that out, and then you got to be able to lay that out to him, get him a cut list, give him tasks that keep him busy for 40, if it's a full-time 40 hours a week, which is a big ask on a small shop like this. So when I've had employees in the past. I had Ryan originally. He was a great employee. Business slowed down, and I ended up letting him go. And then I got really busy and hired Robert. And 2 years with Robert was great. It's really like an eye-opener, because in my mind I was like, okay, I'm going to bring Robert in. We're going to start making more pieces. We're going to get bigger. Robert's going to build a really big part of this. And then I realized, like, it's hard. It's hard to bring someone into your workshop, into your space, keep the quality standards, stay on top of everything. It adds a workload that I did not anticipate or expect, and it also adds just that level of stress, knowing like now I've got a much larger payroll, and I got to make that. I'm not going to miss that. I got to support this guy too, and I want it to get bigger and better so I can pay him more and more and keep him interested in being with me. And that's really difficult. It's not easy. And those 2 years there were some great moments in it. I get a lot of satisfaction on the fact that I can train someone and now they can go off and be successful on their own. But those were stressful years. And I just learned a lot in that, and knowing that is, it's just, maybe it'll happen again. I don't know. But right now I'm in a great sweet spot as a one-man shop with part-time help coming in and out. I spent those 2 years really pouring in a lot to Robert, and this is not a lucrative business from the get-go, and especially not lucrative for the apprentice, for someone who's working underneath. So it's hard. Robert got to the point where he needed to make more to support his family. We live in a fairly expensive town, which is a plus in that there's people who can afford my furniture, but it's also expensive to live in. And I respect Robert for, he's got to do what he's got to do to take care of his family. So there was a separation there because of pay. I couldn't pay Robert what he needed to make, and I think he was aware of that, and he decided to go off on his own, because truly that's the only way you're going to earn that higher income. It was just hard. It was unexpected. It really put me in a tight spot because I had scheduled out almost 10 months of work. I had gotten, right when Robert put in his notice, I had one of the best months of my business career as far as just money. And it stacked on months and months of work, and it was great. But I wasn't anticipating Robert leaving when I scheduled all that and made the commitments to some of these builds that had to be done in these months. So I was left with a really challenging year. It took me probably 12 to 13 months of really hard hustle to clean up the 2 years I lost of the investment in Robert. So in the grand scheme for my business, it didn't help me out a lot. Personally, I think it's great because I got to pour into Robert. I try to be a mature adult about that and put a lot of the grievances aside that were hard and just know that this is the path. So Robert's doing his own thing now, and I think there's plenty of room in this town for both of us, so it's not affecting me at all. And so that's a big picture of how I've dealt with the experiences I've had with employees over the years. Currently, to answer the first part of your question, I have Luke working for me now. Luke is a graduate of SCAD in Georgia. He was a part of their furniture maker program and various other design elements. I think he did some product design stuff. So his role now really came in. My goal this year was to try to get this YouTube channel back on a positive track. And so that's really what Luke came in to help with, take some of the workload off of me, kind of help come up with ideas. This video we're shooting now was Luke's idea, so he's a big part of it. He edits it all together. He does a lot of that background work, so he's an amazing asset. Now, it's challenging again with Luke because the YouTube channel in and of itself is not earning a lot of revenue, not enough to support me and Luke. So I'm now reinvesting back into the YouTube channel, and Luke, in a sense, is investing some of his time because he's working mostly just for percentage of earnings. So it's kind of, we're both kind of grinding right now to see what we can do to turn this around this year. And so, Luke's going to see this. I just hope Luke keeps grinding with me. Come on, man, we can do this. We started off really solid in January, had a good trajectory, and then I feel bad. The boomerang video was just, the boomerang video was kind of a bust, and it kind of took some of the wind out of our sales. So we're trying to go from a 10 to 20K view on a video up to 50 to 100K, and that difference means a lot in revenue, a whole lot, and it makes a big difference in me being able to support Luke and keep the channel going. Luke does come down. Part of our deal is he gets to come down and work in the shop too, and he loves that. Luke has a YouTube video. I should mention this. He's made some cool builds, and he does great stuff over on his YouTube channel. So I'll put that in the description, because we should support Luke and go subscribe to him and watch his stuff. One of his videos he did like this 3D form of his butt. He made a stool and he carved it on my CNC. So that would be a video worth watching. He comes down once a week or 1 week a month, stays in the Argosy and helps in the shop, and he's been a big help. So hopefully that continues. I feel like that was a long answer to the employee thing, but hopefully some helpful information in there. Okay, Zach Ashcraft. I want to mention Zach because Zach's been a supporter of the channel for a long time. I know who Zach is. I think he would be okay with me saying his name because he has his own furniture business, I believe. And he also, for a while, was a supporter over on Patreon, which I'm very thankful for. Zach jumped in and asked, curious how you sharpen tools with an atypical bevel, like a gouge or drying off. So he's talking about like gouges that have convex or curved shapes. Draw knives are tricky to sharpen. So I actually use slipstones. I've got a few right here. Had these ready to go for this question. We've got, these are, you got to soak in water. And then I've got a diamond one here that's really nice. And they've got radiuses on them, different radiuses, smaller and bigger ones. And so you can get in there and sharpen those edges. I'm going to be honest, I am not super good at sharpening those types of tools. I do good enough to get decent work out of them, but it's hard and I'm not great. This is a curved blade to a Boggs spoke shave that he has that, I apprenticed with Brian Boggs, and so he would show me how he would sharpen this, and I haven't used this technique, but it works great. I should probably incorporate it. Basically, you can use wood, but ideally you would use some kind of hard surface. It could be a polished steel that's almost the same diameter of this radius. And you put gosh darn it, what is it called? Diamond paste. Came to me. Diamond paste on it, so you can get different grits of diamond paste. It's like sharpening on a diamond stone, but it's like a paste. It's almost like a powder you put on the steel, and then you put water or oil in there. You make a paste, and then it'll sharpen quick, and it works really well if you've got something that you can use as a surface that matches that radius. So yeah, I mean my sharpening system for gouges and whatnot is going to be the slipstones with various grits and different radiuses on the outside edge. And then the draw knife, he asked specifically about that. So when I sharpen a draw knife, I don't take it to the stone. I hold it like so, and I'll use one of my stones I use for chisels and bench planes, and I just take the stone to the draw knife and work it in a rotation like this. And you can hold, if you're holding it against your chest and your arm here, you can hold it pretty steady and keep a good angle here, however you need it, and sharpen pretty good edge onto a draw knife. So that's how I do a draw knife, and I just work through the grits. Draw knives are tricky to sharpen. There are jigs for them, but that technique works great. I can get these things super sharp doing that. And you don't necessarily, a good thing about draw knives is you don't need a straight bevel. You actually want a slightly radius to it, and that allows you, when you come into the cut, to turn the cut. So if you have a straight bevel, it's much harder to make that turn. If you have a slight radius there, you can start your cut and then kind of turn and straighten out. Hopefully that makes sense. So hopefully that's a good answer to that question. Okay, this question is from Aussie. What is your favorite piece that you've made so far? Man, this is one, I don't know why. Generally, I really just don't like this question because I never, people ask it all the time and I just never can, nothing, I can't remember it all. I don't have a good memory, and I'm like, what would I pick out? What would be my favorite piece? And I usually pick out, I don't know if I have a single favorite, but I do have pieces that mean a lot, either to me, like I mentioned earlier, the dresser I built, the ones that challenged me a lot as a craftsman. Ones that I've built that have purpose and meaning. Like I built an urn for a good buddy of mine who passed away. Like I'll never forget that. I've had a client that was with me from the first year I started my business. The first thing I built for him was a photo booth for his wife because she's a photographer. And it was this really cool photo booth that you close up. And then when you want to use it, it all opens up. When it's closed, it looks like a piece of furniture in their house. But then you open it up and it converts into this cool photo booth. And then I built their kids' beds. I mean, when I built this, their kids were real little. I built their beds. I built the parents' beds. I built cabinets in their house, windows. And then a couple weeks ago, their daughter actually got married, and they asked me to build a cross for the wedding, a big cross. And I was just pumped. It's like, yeah, of course, I'd love to do that. And although that's not a complicated thing to build at all, it has meaning and purpose, and I'll never forget the opportunity to do that and be a part of that. And have, like, I remember when she was just a little girl, and now she's getting married. So it's interesting as I'm growing older how the work I've done through the past has just connected me to people. So it's cool. And I don't know, it's hard to pick one thing. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I never can. People ask me and I can't. But those are a few that pop out that have purpose and meaning to me. Alrighty, okay, we've got, this is a good one. Did you get the chance to pull the Argosy up to Colorado yet? Anything you would have done differently now that you finished? Man, this one I'm going to try not to go on for days with. So first part, we have not gone to Colorado in the Argosy. The furthest, we've gone out of state twice, one to New Mexico, one to Arkansas. When I built that sofa, I talked about that earlier, my wife and I delivered that, and we pulled the Argosy up to Taos, found a cool RV park up there, and it was a quick weekend. We made a short trip of it. There was a lot of driving, but it was fun. But then we went to Arkansas with the family. So haven't gone up through Colorado. We are planning. It's going to happen. We haven't done a big trip yet in the RV, in the Argosy. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, I restored it. I like to call it an Airstream just to annoy the Airstream community because it is an Airstream, but it's also called an Argosy. I restored this thing right around COVID. It took me 3 years. I finished it about 3 years ago. So there's a whole series on my channel. You can find the playlist. For 2026, we are planning, something cool with it. We're going to go for 2 or 3 weeks and go up, hit some national parks, Grand Canyon. We want to do that. I want to go up to Yellowstone. I worked in Yellowstone when I was in college, so I want to revisit the park and see what it's like now. Maybe hit Glacier, go down through South Dakota. I don't know. We're kind of tossing around, but we're going to do a big trip in 2026. The Argosy's been great. We've made some amazing memories in that, and it's the coolest thing I've done by far. I mean, it's fun. It's always a lot of work. We're always going on vacation with 3 little kids in a little tight RV it'll test you for sure. And it's always a lot of work, but it's fun and great memories are made. Things I would do differently, 2 things. I would have put the battery. So I've got this really cool battery setup that lets me boondock. I've got 4 lithium-ion batteries and all the inverters and solar and everything. I put it all under the bed, and I wish I had put that over the axles because I think I've put a little too much weight in the tail of the trailer. It tows pretty good, but in the right conditions, it's not fun to tow. So that would be one I'd do different. Another thing I'd add that I want to do different is the back bed. I would have made it 2 twins that you could connect into one big bed. That way it gives you the option of sleeping 2 separate people in the back. Right now it's just one big giant bed, which is great for my wife and I, but if I go camping with some friends or buddies, it's just a weird sleeping arrangement. So it'd been nice to be able to separate that out into twins and then have a way to grow it into a full king. And then there's some framing on the frame. I've talked about this before. When I took the whole thing apart and when I modified the frame where I put the black tank, I had almost a 3-foot spacing between steel joist in the frame. And when you step over that black tank, the floor is squishy and it kind of starting to sink a little bit because there's not enough support, and that drives me nuts. Every time you get to the back hallway and step to go into the bed, you just feel the floor kind of dropping, and you can see it now. And it's frustrating because there's nothing I can do to fix that. I mean, I can't go in there and tear it all out and fix it. So those are the 3 things I would have done different. Love the Argosy. Great memories have been made in it, and we've taken it on about 9 trips now. We just got back from Big Bend about 3 weeks ago, which was an amazing trip. Kind of boondocked a little bit in it. Did great. So having a lot of fun in that. I know and I sense that's limited because my daughter's 10, my oldest is 10. she's probably may start getting bored with it, maybe, who knows, in the next 2 or 3 years, or not wanting to be a part of it. So I'm trying to cram in as much as I can. We're taking it to the beach here into this month, so just try to use as much as I can to get all those memories in, and then I'll probably park it and let it sit until my kids get older, and maybe they want to use it for their kids. It'd be pretty cool, I think. So, good question. This question is from Ken. This is a good one. This is a cool question. What tool do you have that holds special place in your heart? I've been a cabinet maker for 40 years, and I have a simple hammer that was given to me by a childhood best friend. Sometimes when I use it, I think about those simpler times. I totally connect to that question. I think it's awesome. 40 years and understanding, like, I have tools, and I've got them sitting here. I'm going to go into them. I don't have one single favorite tool, but I have tools that have a connection to someone important to me. And our tools are like, we develop a connection with our tools. If I talk about, I've talked about this Stanley 4.5, the first hand plane I ever owned. I've built so much furniture with this little plane. I mean, if you look at it, you can see, when you use a plane, your finger goes forward like this. That's the proper way to hold it. And there's no Japanning or paint back here on the back of this frog where my finger sits. I mean, it's just worn it all off. And you can look at the totes and see where you can see this kind of darkening right here. That's all from the palm of my hand, just from the patina, from using it. So I don't know, that patina to me is awesome. And this plane, I don't use it as often because I got a fancy Lee Nielsen, but it holds a special place to me because it was one of my first. Another one that is, I've already taken it apart. I wanted to share this. So this is the Bog Shave. And I apprenticed with Brian in Kentucky. It was brief. It was 3 months, and it was a great experience for me. I learned a lot. And when I left, I bought a couple of his spoke shaves, and I got back. He would like kind of tune them up a little bit, change the chip breaker, and do a few different things. And so he tuned this one up for me. And when I got back and I was sharpening it, I took the chip breaker off. He had grind the word focus on there, which I don't know if that's going to go into focus. So yeah, you can probably see that. I thought that was really cool. So that means something. I always think of Brian when I use this tool, and it's a bummer too because Brian and I stayed pretty close for a while, and then I just kind of haven't communicated in a long time. So I feel like this is a good time to maybe give him a phone call and catch up. He was definitely a huge part of my furniture journey. The last one I'll share with you is this Big Mama. If you watch my shop tour, you know a little bit. I talked about this one we call Big Bill. A good friend of mine, Weldon Lister, who's an amazing craftsman. He engraves guns. I'll go ahead and link his work in the description as well. I want you guys to check it out because it's worthy of a look. He's far more talented than I am at his craft than I am at my craft. He's also, he's older, and he's also one of those guys that's just a man of wisdom. I always enjoy it. Anytime he comes by the shop or I go to his shop, we have long conversations, and it's not just about our work, it's about life. He's a solid Christian man, and he's just got a lot. There's just a lot of wisdom in him, and I like talking to him. He's got a good perspective on life, and this was his granddad's plane, and he gave it to me. He just gave it to me and said, "I don't ever use this. I don't have a use for it, and I know you'll use it," and that means a lot because I always think of Weldon. I think of his family. He's got a great kid. And his, Big Bill was his dad, who was a country western musician, played with Hank Williams. So there's a cool story behind all that. So those are a few that mean something. It's like the question said. You pick it up, the tool, and you just think. I always think of the person, the connection I have to that person, and that's special. Okay, this one's a little bit more kind of personal, but cool. It's from Cody. What is something you always wanted to do in life? What is a big and crazy dream you've had for your life? I mean, when I think about a crazy dream, I think about what I'm doing now. And this is really, to me, a cool story because when I was, 2004-ish, 24, 23 years old, I dreamed of what I'm doing now. And I say that with true honesty. Like I would think about my future as a furniture maker. Man, how cool would it be to have a property with my house, my shop on there, have an amazing family, wife and kids, and my kids would be running in here, and my dad could come in and help, and there's just all these generations floating into it. And I really thought about that. And I just it's pretty amazing that is where I'm at right now. So whenever I feel sometimes like disappointed or stressed or mad about some kind of circumstance with this, I just think about the fact that, dude, you are very lucky. Like, you have exactly what you sought out to have. And I want to be careful how I say that, because I don't want to make claim of any of that. I am a man of faith, and I feel like God put me on this path and has provided this for me, and I feel a steward of all of it. I'm a steward of my kids. I'm a steward of the money this place makes. I'm a steward of the clients I work for. I just try to glorify God in all that work and all I do there, and that keeps me kind of grounded and in the right spot, and just thankful. This is all a huge blessing, and I just want to be a good steward of it all. And so when I think of a big dream, like, I'm living it, man, and it's pretty awesome. And I just encourage people to find what they love and just do it. You see it all the time on Instagram, people who have done really well at their craft, and it's just that's what they wanted to do. That was what they were built for, and they just did it, and they became good at it. And if you love what you do, you're going to do it, and you're more than likely going to be good at it. So if I think about things, the first part of your question was, what are some things you've always wanted to do in life? Before I got into furniture making, I loved fly fishing. That was like my main hobby, and honestly, I could have easily been a fly fishing guide as I was a furniture maker. I don't know. There was something about the tangible fact of actually creating and building things that drew me in. And so when I came into the world of furniture making, I really kind of pulled away from fly fishing a lot, which has been hard. I wish I could do more of it. I try to get my kids into it. I still do it occasionally, but not as much as I like. So that was a big one that I would have done. Another thing, like in another life, I've always felt, I have a really, really good friend who's in the Air Force, and he flies the F-16. And I've always felt like, as I've gotten older, a little bit of like, I don't know, it's weird, like almost like conviction that I didn't serve my country. And I feel like I think aviation's super cool, by the way. It's like something I kind of look up at and or I'm interested in. And when I look at what he does and I talk to him about what he does, like, man, that is incredible. That would be so much fun to do. And I know it's not easy. There's definitely difficult parts to it. But maybe in another life, it would have been a lot of fun to be a pilot and to fly planes and to experience what it's like to pull 9Gs in a jet and do crazy stuff like that. Although I know for a fact in this life I could not do it. I go to Six Flags and puke everywhere the minute I get on a roller coaster. So true story, I've puked at Six Flags multiple times. So it's not in the cards. So yeah, hopefully that answers that. Some insight into kind of some of the other stuff I'd like to do in my life. Okay, I've relocated. I feel like I needed a change. I don't know, change in scenery. Maybe it helps you guys too. Let's go to the next one here. Okay, this is a good question from Eric. When do you feel it's good enough and you can deliver? Where do you put the limit? So I'm assuming he's talking about like, when do you know how good it is to say this is good, we're done? So that's really hard. I think it's very personal to what you hold your standards to. For me, no piece is ever up to the expectations that I have. I always find things that I wish I would have done better. I mean, this piece I'm building right behind me, this is a desk, and I've got 30 hours to this point in this, mostly all joinery. It's all assembled now, but I could point out many things, and I'm like, man, I wish I had done that better. And every piece I build happens that way. But the thing about that is I set my standards and where I want to be well above what my client's expectations are. So the things that I could pick out that I don't like, the client is never going to know about. And that's really where you need to draw that line, is like, what do you want your client's expectations to be? What do you want to meet there? If I come in and I deliver a piece, I'm like, sometimes I'll be like, man, just this one little detail I wish I had done better. Like, oh, we didn't even notice that. So it's just my expectation, or my standards are above the expectations of my clients. So I never want to disappoint them. There are times when I have to stop and say, this is not good enough. And it's just, you just got to know, you feel it, you see something like, I cannot hand that over to a client like that. So I redo it. If that's at the cost of myself, that's what it is. Because there's more value in delivering a really good piece that far exceeds your client's expectations. If you deliver a piece that has some little thing in there that's not good, and the client can notice that and be like, man, that's I was not expecting to be that bad there. That's not good. You never want that. So you just got to personally know where that line is. And then, I talked earlier about having an employee in the shop. It gets so much more difficult at that point, because then you have someone else that has to understand what your expectations are and maybe has less skill, less ability. And so you're trying to kind of bring them up to you, but they're not quite there yet. And they do some things that you're like, gosh, man, that's just, we got to redo that, So that's a great question. And it's just, it's really up to where you want to be. And my personal opinion is always like, I'm going to build heirloom quality furniture, which means it's going to be generational. So it's just got to be executed and built really well in order for it to do that. And I set high standards. And we're human beings, will never be perfect, never. So as you get into your own furniture builds, just know where you want your standards to be, and always achieve or over deliver what the client expects. So hopefully that's a good answer. This one was from Norland Custom Woodworking. How did you get started in YouTube? Okay. So how did I get started in YouTube? This is a really good question. I think it's a cool story. I had never had any desire to YouTube. It was never on my radar. I was actually, when I started YouTube, was good friends with Matt Carricker. If you don't know who Matt is, just Google his name. He's a pretty well-known YouTuber. He's from Bernie. My wife went to high school with him, so grew up with him. And I knew Matt well before he was ever pretty well known on YouTube. And we were in, like, my first memory of Matt's YouTube, we were in small group with our church together, and we had finished our Bible study. And Matt, all the guys were hanging out. He's like, hey, I want to show you guys something. And he pulls up his YouTube channel and shows us his demolition ranch and blowing stuff up. And I remember thinking, like, dude, I don't know about this, man. Like, you've got a wife and you got kids and you've got a veterinarian practice. Like, what are you doing blowing things up, like making videos? This is weird. I was wrong. So Matt became very successful with that. Very successful. And he's now retired, which I fully support. It's pretty awesome that he did that. But where Matt comes into my life with YouTube is he kept pushing me. He's like, dude, you got to have a YouTube channel. Like, people will watch your videos. And I was like, I think this was 2016 maybe. I was like, man, I have no interest of talking to a camera, being behind a camera. I'm not comfortable with it. And he mentioned a channel called Primitive Technology and was like, you don't have to talk, just film what you're doing. Just move the camera around and film different angles. And I actually have, my college degree is in what you call telecom, which is a multimedia video production, film, radio, television. So I had a degree in this. So I was like, well, okay, I can do it. I know how to do this. So actually, the very first video I did, I built 2 sawhorses, and Matt came to my shop. He's like, I'll come to your shop and help you. So he helped me shoot the first one. He sat there and we edited it together, put it together, and that is how my channel started. Matt Carricker basically came and was like, here's your first video, which is pretty awesome. I'm very thankful to him because it took off. My 4th video, I carved the spoon, which that video has gotten around 25 million views to date. And I took off on this this video carving thing. People loved it. The silent videos, the sounds, all the carving. And looking back, I sometimes hold, hard regret on myself for moving away from that. After 2 or 3 years of doing that, I kind of got burned out on, I ran out of ideas, and I was tired of carving. And I'm hard on myself, but there's a lot of guys out there that are way better carvers than me, way better spoon carvers. So it's not like I'm some amazing carving. I'm just good at putting it out there. And so I went away from that, and that was kind of the trajectory of the channel, like this really good steep growth up. And I always felt like, man, this channel is just going to keep going. And then I kind of started trying new things and kind of lost a little interest. It flattened out. And then the last 4 years, it's just been down slow. And so that's more information than the question asked for. But the YouTube journey, I mean, I hope that the YouTube can, I don't know if there's a chance to bring it back up, but Luke and I are trying. We're hustling, and we're hoping maybe that's possible. And I guess ultimately, the end of the day, I'm just thankful for y'all for watching the videos and allowing me to have some great success over the last 8 years at this. It's been a blessing. So thanks to y'all. Okay, next question is actually a really good follow-up to what I just talked about with YouTube. I need a quick sip of water here. from Jaybird. Jaybird426 says, or asks, why aren't you putting out videos of ongoing projects, even if they are a 10-minute video, getting your work promoted so everyone can see how detailed it is? The funny thing about that is Luke and I were on a call earlier this week talking about that exact thing, because I haven't done that because it's just always in my mind, like, let's just give them the build video. But the challenge with me and YouTube is I'm one of the few YouTubers out there that runs a full-time custom furniture shop first and does YouTube second. And I've gotten a lot of grief, even from Matt, for not quitting my custom furniture shop and being a full-time YouTuber, especially when it was hot and I was really doing well. I don't feel any need for that. Like, I feel very content and happy with the decision for me to continue my furniture business, because that's what I love and that's what I want to do. I will never let that go. So I've got to find, as a content creator and a business owner, a way to balance both, and that is the hard part. My filming, 80% of what I film is build videos. So like this, I've been filming this for the last couple weeks, just the process of doing this. The next one will be a bed, and that's really where the sweet spot is for me. We're making content, just filming what I'm building for clients. Now, a lot of times that's boring stuff to people, I think, like a lot of dining room tables, a lot of things that people just don't want to see and watch. And the build videos don't always do well. Even the really exciting ones, like the topographic table and then the walnut table, the last video we put out, I thought those were going to be really good videos, and not many people watched them. So where I'm going with this is, Luke and I talked about this very idea, is like, what would it look like? And I have a Patreon, and so I do weekly updates. So that type of content that you're asking about is actually up. If you're a patron, you can get that. I do a weekly update and go in detail of what I'm doing in the shop. But what would it look like to kind of play around with that on YouTube? So every week post just, hey, this is what we did, what I did this week and what I'm working on. How would that, and these are the questions I'm thinking as I'm telling you, how would that affect the actual finished build video? Because you've already seen so much of the build in these weekly videos. So do you want to watch the full build video that's 30, 40 minutes long? You know, so those are things that Luke and I are tackling and trying to strategize and be creative about and think through. And your question is a good question. I don't know why I haven't yet, but we're talking. It's funny, we're talking about doing that, and we're just trying to figure out how we can frame it and make it work. Because I can't post. If I post a weekly video like that and it doesn't gain a lot of entrance from the big audience and it's only getting 10K views, I just, like, there's not enough revenue in that to make it worth our efforts. You know, a video that gets 10,000 views makes $50 in ad revenue. So if it's not sponsored, it's not paying for anywhere close to what it costs to produce it. So that's, you know, these are all the things that you have to tackle and deal with as a content creator. So good question, and maybe it may happen. We're talking about it, and I think it could be cool. We'll see. It would be great to get feedback from y'all in this video on what you think. So good question. This one comes from Rattlebones427. Is there any projects you thought up but never did due to the time, money, or effort required? Not a lot's coming to mind. I know there's some in there. The one project that kind of clicks to me is I got an opportunity to work for the Alamo several years back doing some Canon carriage work and Canon patterns, and in that process I got to see some of the collections in the Alamo that the public doesn't get to see. It was kind of cool, and in that I caught a glimpse of dude, you're having a senior moment, Sam. Okay, I'm here, I'm back. I got a glimpse of Sam Houston's writing desks that they had. And so I really tried hard to allow the Alamo to approve me to make a replica of that desk, which I didn't think would be hard, but turns out it was. I wanted to build 2 replicas for a YouTube series, one for the Alamo to display and one for me to personally use in my shop to sit at and work at. And I was going to take all the dimensions of it and make an exact replica. Went through the process of trying to communicate with Texas lawyers, and they just I don't know, it didn't pan out. I don't really fully understand why, but that would be one that I really wanted to do that just maybe in the future it might happen, but I just hit a dead end on that one. So that's what comes to mind. Okay. Oh gosh, this is a good one. This is very general. So this is TWC6724, how long did it take you to get where you currently are at in your career of woodworking? I started taking woodworking seriously around 2004. And I was doing woodworking when I was a teenager. So in 2004, I was, how old was I? I think I was 23. So I was pretty young, but I had already had a little bit of experience. But it was a long process. And if I would have told my 24-year-old self, you won't have your business until 2011, 2012, I don't know if I would have continued it. Because in my mind, at that age, I thought really quickly I would be jumping in and taking off. But it's a long process. And the reason for that is because this is a very, if you respect this craft, you respect what you do, you got to learn it and you got to get good at it. And it's not easy. It takes a lot of repetition, just a lot of experience. Experience is what the biggest teacher that we have. So just that process took time. And I would just encourage anyone young who's going to do this to not be overwhelmed by that. Just embrace it, accept it, and enjoy the ride and learn as much as you can. And some people are going to be probably a little bit faster progressing than me. Some people may be able to go quicker. But I think it's important that you really understand the craft and are able to respect it and how you work before you jump out and try to do your own thing, if that makes sense. So it was a long journey, still is a long journey. I got a long ways to go, so it's fun. And I'm very fortunate and thankful that I've been able to stick with it and keep going. And God willing, I'll hopefully get to keep going in the future. That was a good one. There was a lot of thumbs up on that question. A lot of people like that question. All right, this is going to be a little bit of a long one, but I think it's a great subject for people. How do you price a custom piece of furniture? This is from Frank. I won't say your last name, but it's from Frank. Okay, how do you price your custom piece of furniture? I get the labor and materials part, but how do you make sure that you cover your overhead? I'm trying to think how I want to answer this. So, well, for the way I price work, my overhead is priced into my labor. So, I mean, I basically have two numbers I'm working with: my direct cost to the project, the cost of goods sold, the materials, hardware, glues, stuff like that, and then I've got my labor rate. And so my labor rate's going to include utilities, my Wi-Fi for the shop, I've got storage, rental storage, I've got my salary that that's a personal decision. What do you want to pay yourself? I've got a lot of software. Fusion 360 is an expensive software that's tied into my shop rate. These are, for the most part, fixed costs. They're variable in the sense that they change over time, but in the short term, they're pretty fixed. I've got, the utilities, the rent, the electricity to run the shop, just all that stuff. And then I've got more variable costs thrown in that can be, fluid and change, where shop supplies, that's an expensive expense category in my business. Equipment maintenance, equipment upgrades. So, it adds up quick. So what you need to do to figure out how to cover your overhead is you need to sit down and you need to, I'm not going to go into the details, but figure out how many hours a month you plan on working. And you can chat GPT this really quick and figure out this stuff and figure out, you just basically need to figure out your hourly rate, what that hits at. And that rate needs to cover all of those overhead expenses you have, the fixed, the variable ones, and you got to really think through them, and then it needs to cover your salary as well. And then if you have payroll, that's got to go in there. So that shop rate at this point is just covering the cost to run your business. So you want to throw in a little profit. That's up to you. What is it going to be? So I mean, you pay yourself, you pay all your expenses, but you still need a little bit of money left over to either save, reinvest in the business, which that's hard, especially with this type of business. And when you start adding up the cost of a piece and you put your shop rate in, the hours it's going to take to build, the expenses, and you got this big number, and then you put a 20% markup on that, the number gets even bigger, you start to talk yourself out of it. So that would be, this is kind of diverting, but I would say stick to what you know. I mean, the numbers don't lie. You know what it costs to run your business. You know what it costs to build the piece. You got to stick to that, and it's up to you where you want to land as far as your personal pay. That's your own decision, obviously, and then how much profit you want to put in there. And just try really hard to say this is the business, these are the numbers. I'll price something out and I'll look at it. There's no way, this is too expensive. Don't let yourself do that. Just send it. Just hit the send button at what you priced it out at. And if they say no, they say no. Part of that decision too might be tied into what does your backlog look like. For me, I have right now like 6-7 month backlog. So I'm not going to talk myself out of a price because I don't need work necessarily. I mean, I do want to stack more on the back of that. But if someone says no, it doesn't hurt quite as bad. Now, if you're in a position where you're just getting started, you got to really be strategic because you might just need that work. And I've been in this place where it's like, I got to get this job. So if I don't put a profit, if I just cover paying myself and the cost it costs to run this shop, I'm okay with that because I'm going to get work. I'm going to keep this business rolling forward. So it's hard. You got to make kind of decisions on the fly. That I think I kind of sidetracked a little bit on this question, but I think it was relevant information to give. So you're going to obviously do your shop rate, figure that out. That's going to cover all your overhead, and then decide what you want to do, profit on top of that. So that's a good question. Hopefully that's a good answer. I think it is. All right, next question is from Austin in ATX. What are the pivotal projects from your career? I'm thinking ones that made you the furniture maker you are, or ones that you are most proud of, or ones that most show what you can do. For example, perhaps the cherry shaker set from years back. I do remember that cherry shaker set. I think he's talking about, that was maybe a year ago. And that was a cool project. I love that project because it was real handmade furniture. It was a lot of fun to build. If I'm being honest with you guys, I have a really bad memory. People ask me all the time, what's your favorite project? And I have to kind of think about it. But there are 3 that are kicking in my head that I've, as a craftsman, have really appreciated building. I'm going to add 4. I'm going to put 1 more in there. And then helped my business in a way. So, gosh, man, I say 4 now. Now I'm thinking of more. Okay, I'm going to do 5. I'm going to do them quick. First is a cherry dresser I made out of escarpment cherry for a really good client. Escarpment cherry is local to the Texas Hill Country type of cherry. And it was a cool old dresser that had hand-fitted drawers, dovetails, slip drawer bottoms. Just really, I put a lot of hours in this, and it's on YouTube. It's a 2-series build. Just a really enjoyable build. Super challenging for me personally, and I was just really proud of myself when I was able to execute that one and get it done. I don't think that one impacted the business a whole lot, but for me as a craftsman, it was pretty awesome. Second is the walnut platform bed I built right when Robert was leaving. And there's a video on that one as well. That was a fun build that was challenging with beautiful walnut slab headboards, these really cool floating nightstands that you have a see-through side on the nightstand so you could see the dovetail drawers, and I used some of my quarter sawn sycamore I have on stash that I sawed up. That was a challenging build, and I was proud in the sense of the design, the way the drawers looked, and I thought it was well executed and went really well. So that one was great work with an architect that helped me get further work. So that was a really good build. Gosh darn it, like I said, I have a horrible memory. Where's the third one? It's in my brain somewhere. The sofa. That one went to Santa Fe. No, Taos, New Mexico. I'm going to probably say that wrong. My wife makes fun of me constantly when I say Taos because I don't know how to say it. I have speech issues for some reason. It was a sofa that I designed with a client. It kind of had a Japanese Nakashima feel to it. It was cool, and it was a fun build, very challenging, a lot of spindles in it. Really challenged me from the design's perspective through Fusion to figure it all out in there and then bring it in the shop and actually do it. Build video on that one as well. That was a really cool, challenging project. And then I'm thinking of the very first thing, one of the very first pieces of furniture I made was a walnut rocking chair at Homestead Heritage under the guidance of Paul Sellers. It was a class I took it was a week-long class, and did everything by hand. It was the first actual piece of furniture I made. I have it sitting in my living room, and it's just important. It's a big part of my journey as a furniture maker. So that one. And then the one that kicked in my mind also is a tricky veneer I did for the HEB Foundation offices. This was another YouTube series, another build where I did it was an ellipse table with a sunburst pattern veneer in it. out of some pecan, and it was challenging as well. I mean, it was new to me. I've never done it before, so I learned a lot on that one. So those are the ones that are coming to mind. Some projects that I've really enjoyed and loved over the years. Okay, next question, Josh. If I want to get into woodworking as a hobby, what is the best way to start? This is a tough one because obviously we all know woodworking is not a cheap endeavor. You know, tools are expensive. So I would have two pathways for you. One, the way I did it as well, yeah, pretty much the way I did it was when I got serious, I started with hand tools. So it's a really low investment at this point. You need a workbench, so you're either going to have to build that. You'll need some various hand tools, set of bench chisels, layout tools, marking gauge, squares, hand saw, and a hand plane. You know, you could probably rally all that together, just those hand tools. I don't know, it depends on what you want to spend. You know, I'm thinking under $1,000 you can get all that and get pretty well set up, plus the workbench. Now, when you get started, the problem you're going to have with hand tools is you don't have a way to mill and machine lumber, which makes things a little bit more challenging. So you got to find shops in the area that are willing to do that for you, and that can be difficult. I've done that for people in the past. They've come to me and said, hey, I'm building this table. Can you mill all the parts, and I'll do the joinery at my place. So, you know, it just depends on if you can find someone willing to do that for you. There are large millwork places that may custom mill parts. Might be kind of costly, but that's an option as well. So there's that route. Now, a lot of people just don't want to do hand tools, and that's fine. If you're more a machine woodworker, it's going to be more costly, but you could load up, you could get the basic machines you need. I would still recommend the workbench, obviously, with a vise. You're going to need table saw or handheld plunge router, a good one, because you can do a lot with that tool. Those two power tools, you can actually build quite a bit of furniture, but you still have the challenge of having to mill parts. So if you have the means, a joiner and a planer are the two pretty essential pieces of machinery. That way you can just order your rough lumber, bring it in the shop, and make all your parts in shop, and that's a game changer. So as a hobbyist, what you really need to do if you want to set up a shop is get yourself a table saw, a plunge router, some various hand tools, layout tools, the joiner, and the planer. And if you wanted to, you could substitute the table saw for a really nice bandsaw. When I worked for Brian Boggs, he didn't have table saws. We just used bandsaws, and you can do everything with a bandsaw that you can do on a table saw, and it's safer. So that's something to consider. So yeah, if you want to go really easy, low key, grab some various hand tools and be patient. You're not going to move quick with hand tools. You want to build things, you know, you don't want to be directed like by your wife who says, hey honey, we need this TV stand over here. You want to start by just building things you can make. Like right behind my head here, you see all these glues and whatnot on that shelf. That was a shelf that I built entirely with hand tools in a class with Paul Sellers. Not difficult to build. You can get the plans to build it, and you build 2 or 3 of those, and you kind of learn some skills. Build a little nightstand with some legs and mortise and tenon joints, and learn those skills, and build things that are a good fit for hand tool woodworking, that are going to be, experience is the best teacher. So you're just going to keep doing that over and over. It may, you may need to give yourself a year or 2 to go through this process, and you'll start to gain some pretty good knowledge. It's like anything. If you want to get in shape and exercise, the first 3 or 4 months suck because you don't see any results and you're not having fun. And it could be that way with woodworking. The first 4 or 5 months you might be getting frustrated. You're not seeing great results. You don't have a finished piece yet, but you just got to keep going. You got to keep pushing through and doing it. So that'd be my recommendation there. Hopefully that's a good answer. Appreciate the question. Okay, this next one is very specific. Woodworking technique question, sorry. I'm going to read it out. It's kind of long. Hopefully this makes sense. This is from Sullivan. What's the best method order to getting flat parts and eventually flat pieces? I spend so much of my time just trying to keep things flat. My planer does a great job, but sometimes there's bowing. My table saw is okay. Sometimes there are saw marks to sand out. I try to sand some before glue ups, but sometimes uneven pressure makes dips. Feels like a constant flatness. Feels like I constantly fight flatness, sorry. What's the best order of operation? Is there anything to do other than just be better at the steps along the way? Well, I think the first thing you got to do is how flat do you need to be? Like if you've got moving parts like a drawer in an opening, you've got to be dialed in really flat and true. A tabletop needs to be relatively flat. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat, especially if it's a circle. Your eye can't pick out the lack of flatness as well as if it doesn't have a straight line. If I put a straight edge across the table and I've got an 1/8 inch gap in a spot or two, I'm not going to sweat that probably, because it's just not, very few people are going to notice it, and it's wood. It's like you mentioned, there's wood movement. I've got a table in here I'm working on now out of pine that I had dead flat off the CNC, and I let it sit for a while over the last 2 weeks, and it's not flat anymore. So this is the battle of woodworking. This is the challenge, and what I'll do for that is probably reflatten it, because it's gotten pretty bad, and I'll just lose thickness of material. And luckily, it's pretty thick, so I have that thickness to work with. But your order of operations, to answer that, depends on what equipment you have. If you're using a joiner and you're coming off your planer, that right there, alpha planer, should be well flat enough for anything you're doing. When it comes to the drawers that I talked about earlier, you're going to want to fit those more than likely with a hand plane. And now, if you're a small shop, you need to have. It's so beneficial if you don't to have some knowledge of how to use a hand plane to flatten. Before I had my big wide belt, which is what flattens most of my tabletops. After a glue up, I'll glue up 4 or 5 boards and then I'll run it through that wide belt and it's dead flat. Before that, I would use hand planes, and it was a lot of work, and I had a good understanding of how to properly use different types of hand planes to get flat. So if you don't have the hand planes, I'm almost of the argument, it depends on what you're doing, but if you're doing like a tabletop and you get all your boards flat off a planer, then you glue them up, and you're pretty close. The glue up's a big part of it, and how good your edge joint and everything to keep that flat. But you're still going to have some joints to level. Find a local shop with a wide belt sander and pay $50 to go run it through their sander, and you'll be done. You just orbital from there. So those are good ways to do it. I mean, I think you really. I would have to be in the shop with you, but sometimes we obsess over certain levels of tolerances that we don't need to. And so I would encourage you to really consider, like, how flat does this need to be for what I'm doing? And if you don't already know how to use hand planes, I would encourage you to look into, if you've got a jack plane, scrub plane, a big number 8 or 7, and then a smoothing plane. Those 3 planes, I can flatten a tabletop with those. Now, it takes time. But it's really helpful to know that, because even on a small piece, like if I see a slight bit of twist, I can fix that with hand planes if I need to. So I don't know. Hopefully that's a good answer to your question. I feel like anything you bring off your planer should be flat enough if your planer's tuned well for anything you need. Now, any movement that happens after that is a bummer, and a way you can prevent that is, for one, when you leave your shop at the end of the day, stack those parts up, put some weight on them, put a blanket over them. That's a very good thing to do. If you put a blanket over parts, it insulates them. So let's say you are working all day, you've milled all your parts, you got them all perfectly flat. It's a hot day here in Texas, 90 degrees, and then all of a sudden you wake up the next morning and it's super humid. There's rain coming in. The shop's just swelling up with moisture. Those parts you milled yesterday are gonna move. And if you put weight on them and put a blanket over them, it'll insulate them, and they're very less likely to move. So that's one thing that can be helpful to consider. It's just the battle of working with wood. It's hygroscopic, picks up moisture, and it swells and moves when it does that. So hopefully that helps. You did have a extra question there in the reply. Let me see what that one's all about. So Sullivan followed up with another question unrelated here that I'd like to share. Hearing little nuggets every now and then about your faith is very cool. I'm not sure how to phrase a question, but anything on your faith, or maybe how you integrate faith family into your work, would be awesome to hear. I mean, gosh, I could talk a long time on this, and I don't want to do too much, but my whole business is intertwined into my faith. My journey into my Christian faith is this business is a big part of it. I felt God called me to do this at a very specific moment in my life. It's part of my testimony. As I've done furniture making, I feel like God has taught me a lot about patience, especially like not having a heated mind, frustration. It's really easy to get upset in the shop. It's really like been a long journey for me to be able to mature and be patient and just not get overwhelmed and know that, it's not that big of a deal. My job is stressful. I'm going to be honest. It has been stressful. The world is getting expensive. As a small business owner, it's hard for me to give myself a raise. It's hard to match inflation. I'm just like anybody else watching. I have a mortgage to pay. I have 3 kids to food. I'm always like kind of a believer of eating really good, whole, healthy foods, which is expensive. So our food budget is big. So I'm just saying all that to say all the weight and stress that everyone feels, I feel it too. And I have, just having a solid faith is something that grounds you. It's something that allows you to walk through that, through time in the Bible, through prayer. The Christian faith has a great way of allowing us to think less of ourselves and more of those around us. And so when we think less of ourselves, we worry less about our problems, and we're called not to be worriers. We're called not to worry. I pray every day over my day. I pray every morning over the day in my shop, that I would be joyful, that I would work efficiently, that I wouldn't make mistakes. And when I leave the shop at the end of the day, if I've had a bad day, I pray that I would not take that into my house, that I would leave it right where it is, and I would go in and be a father and a husband. And, those were things that I think only really could be achieved through my faith and just what I get from the Holy Spirit, from prayer, and from time reading the Bible. So hopefully that's something, a little nugget to share on how I entered my faith. You just can't be a Christian and your faith not intertwined into your work, because our work is an expression. It's worship, in my opinion. So work is so important, and it glorifies God if we do it the right way. So it all intertwines and it all mixes, and I could talk for hours on that. So hopefully that's something that gives you a little bit of an answer to what you were asking. That's it. Ending this video, a couple things. A big thanks to Luke. We talked about Luke earlier. He does all the work editing all this together. Like I said, his stuff is down in the description. So go check him out, subscribe to him, support him. 2, got the Patreon. So if you guys want, there's more bonus footage over there. Help support the channel as well. 3, just you don't have to do anything. Just leave a comment and say what you want. Thank you for all who tune in. Much appreciated. And if this was good and helpful, we'll keep doing the Q&As maybe and keep those rolling. So thanks again, guys, and we'll see you on the next video.